Hello everybody, thanks for joining us. My name is John Millikan. I'm the VP of Operations here at Xsellarate Merchant Services. Thank you for joining our presentation on the cost analysis for Shopify, Square, and Etsy based businesses. In the presentation today we're going to be covering the cost analysis of the big three. We'll be going over who we are as a platform and how we relate to your business. And then we'll be touching on the benefits of switching over from platforms like Shopify, Square, and Etsy. And then we'll also go over how to get a same-day quote from our website. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So just a little word from the Xsellarate platform. Xsellarate gives you access to services not commonly available with other merchant providers. We tie in all the benefits of unique merchant account with your business with access to free web services and SEO. We are a team of entrepreneurs who struggled to find efficient solutions for credit processing and other aspects of running our previous businesses. At times we felt that there was too many vendors and services required, a high level of maintenance that pulled us away from what we were supposed to be doing, which was running those businesses. So, with a mission to make this process easier for business owners, Xsellarate was born. And so we'll kind of jump into our analysis of the big three here. And these include three different categories. It's going to be Squarespace and the Square processing, Shopify and Shopify processing, and then Etsy and their payment processing partners, which are WorldPay, PayPal, and Aiden. And so first, let's take a look at Square. And so over to the right-hand side, we put a graphic on here that breaks down Square's pricing. For the sake of argument and for our presentation today, we've just picked average pricing plans. With all of these platforms, typically what you see is there's three different tiers of pricing. And most of these websites and platforms will say that the best bang for your buck is going to be the middle pricing plan. They typically have something that's a basic plan that's for starter organizations, and then they have a middle kind of mid-market plan, and then an enterprise plan. And so we're focusing on the mid-market stuff. It's a good average, and I think that most people are using these plans. And so kind of go over the Square's platform basis. So Square gives you a lot of access to great tools and excellent tools for individuals to create good, clean websites and convenient payment processing. Square, Stripe, Google Checkout, Payoneer, and PayPal all operate on an interesting platform for the payment processing side that's called aggregate merchant systems. And this gives them full control of liquid funds, but it leaves small business owners susceptible to certain risks. We'll go in a little bit later about what aggregate merchant systems are and what they mean for you as a business. And it's an interesting approach that they use to maintain their infrastructure in their business. And it's easier for them to do this than to give everyone their own merchant account. There's some extra fees associated with Square. And so on top of charging credit processing to cover their platform overhead, Square also charges for different types of equipment and associated marketing costs for your small business. Although they offer great discounts for shipping, if you're paying for premium subscription fees, they're still relatively high. So for the platform to operate efficiently, many times merchants have to bring in a variety of other softwares to the platform for it to be efficient. So in combination with high software monthly premiums, you're also going to have to bring in a large variety of other softwares that they offer and partner with to make sure that your platform and your business can operate effectively on the day-to-day. So what we've done is we've put together some payment breakdowns so that you guys can get a better idea of what you're looking at. There's some assumptions that are made in here, and this is only going to include the software premiums and the rate processing as well as the incremental fees on the per transaction basis. So it's important to take in mind that there are other associated fees that come along with owning a Squarespace and having a Squarespace business that are not really going to be listed in these examples. But for the sake of argument, we wanted to take a look at just kind of baseline margins and baseline processing rates so that you can get a better idea of where your business stands, and maybe you align with some of the information in here. I think that most business owners will probably recognize this. If you're currently on the platform, you'll see your bills, and these should be pretty close to what you're paying. A little bit lower, like I said, because there's not the other associated costs with doing business with Square included in these, because they're too variable, too circumstantial. So we broke it up into 3 categories. There's a $1,500 a month, a $5,000 a month, and $10,000 a month processing category, and these will stay the same as we go over Shopify. There's no real good way to quantify Etsy just because of the level of complexity and the amount of fees. And so we just talk about other associated problems with the platform later on in the presentation, but this will stay the same for when we do the payment breakdown for Shopify. So how we've broken it up is there's the software premium, and we made an assumption after talking to many of our Facebook clients, as well as people that we are currently doing business with in the e-commerce space, and they mentioned that the average transaction price is anywhere from $20 to $30. So we lowballed it, and we just said we're going to go with $20 for this example. And so the total number of $20 transactions in $1,500 a month is 75. And so for the rate only processing, Square is charging 3.5% for the terminal rate, for the digital terminal, and so it ends up being $52.50. And then the incremental charges, the 15 cents per transaction. So 75 times that 15 gets you to $11.25. And so for this grand total for this example is going to be $89.75. And we just calculated the margins so that you as a business owner have a little bit of a better understanding on, because at the end of the day, everybody's business and your effectiveness to scale and become effective in making systems and accelerating your business is going to be predicated on your control of margins. It's every business. It's simple arithmetic. It's math. And so you have to control costs, and this is something that's going to put everything in perspective for you guys. So for this example, it's 5.9% of your margin. In the world of credit processing, you should never be above 4%. 4% should be the absolute max, and anything past that is probably money that is either inflated or costs that are inflated and need to be controlled. And so for our next example, $5,000 a month, the only thing that's going to change the number of transactions and the rate processing, and that gives you a grand total of $238.50, which is 4.77% of margin. So all of these platforms, take in mind, as you spend more money, there is going to be economies of scale, and it is going to reduce the percent margin for your business. But that is not exactly where the issues are. Where the issues lie is the extra services that are associated, and the extra, there's some extraneous fees that are associated with once you start doing larger amounts of business. And so, and again, as I stated, these are not gone over in this presentation just because they're a little complex and situational. It depends on industry, it depends on business. But for the sake of argument, we put together these percentages for you. So the $10,000 a month, after all with the performance plan, medium plan, and premium and all the rates, ends up being $451, which is 4.51% of your margin. And this is an enterprise level business for Square. Doing $10,000 a month is, I think it falls into the upper echelons of the mid-market for the Square businesses. And so this is why we chose these specific figures. So just to get a better idea and a better picture of what you guys are looking at. And so you may be looking at this and be like, nah, my bill is higher than this. Again, there's always extra fees, but this is baseline for hosting software and credit processing. So let's take a look at Shopify. Shopify has a bit of a different pricing structure. It's a little bit more transparent on the Shopify side. What they do is they have 3-tier plans, and they will adjust the percentage rates as you increase your software premium and get access to more features. They will actively lower the percentage rates. The problem is with Shopify, they charge higher incremental fees. And so if you're a business that is doing high volume and low price point, this is going to eventually eat into your business. And you'll see that Shopify is relatively more expensive than Square by a couple of percentage points. So the Shopify platform basis, Shopify has built a system that appeals to merchants who are trying to expand to large markets and those who are just beginning their journey. Shopify caters to businesses that have ambitions for opening physical locations and supplies its merchants with deep discounts on shipping. So that is something that they try to entice you with. And it's also important to note that although that Shopify is a huge e-commerce platform, if you really look at their offerings and how they structure their platform, you can really derive that they're actually trying to get businesses to buy equipment and expand to physical locations. It works best for their business model to get businesses who are interested in selling face-to-face to continue to operate within the Shopify platforms. So current issues associated with Shopify. Shopify is great for businesses to get off the ground, but boasts some large subscription fees for its software. And that's one of the bigger differences when you're starting your journey and beginning your venture into e-commerce. What you'll see is that Shopify has drastically higher software subscription rates than Square or Etsy. And the platform also struggles with things like ERP integrations, and these are things that are essential to run your business. It'd be like all the API plugins, so getting your shipping integrated, getting your inventory management integrated, things of that nature. It also has bugs with the multi-channel integrations, so these are all the social integrations, social media integrations. And it has issues with functionality within reporting and analytics. So in short, Shopify requires a large deal of effort and time to get calibrated, which is also a huge problem that we hear from a number of customers. And there's a lot of API plugins that you have to string together, and most times they do not behave well with each other. Yeah, this is an issue of having these large platforms and trying to wrap all of these services into an all-in-one platform. For millions of people, it becomes strenuous on the platform, and it becomes difficult to have things working correctly. And so these are just some of the issues that we see with Shopify. So, like I mentioned before with the Square side, this is a very similar breakdown. And so their middle plan is the performance plan, and it's $71 for that particular plan. Everything else will stay the same, and it's still the same categories: $1,500, $5,000, and $10,000 a month. So with everything consistent for your $1,500 a month business, credit processing, it's going to cost you $132.50. And so this is 8.8% of your margin. This is quite large, and this is probably the largest issue for what small businesses will experience while being on Shopify, is being at this credit threshold is extremely expensive. You should never pay 8.8% of your margin just to process credit and have access to software for your business and for your marketplace. So moving down to 5,000, it's going to end up coming out to $276 which is 5.5% of your margin. It's, like I said, economies of scale, so it will always improve as you go higher until it reaches a threshold. It's kind of like a hockey stick curve, or an upside down hockey stick curve. So, at some point it will plateau, and the savings will begin to decrease. As you can see, you move to 10,000, and it's the total processing, cost here is 481, and that's going to end up being 4.8% of your margin. So just a little thing for our Shopify customers, for you guys to put it in perspective. Please engage with this content and let us know if these numbers are correct. They're most likely lowballed. Most times, I think that there's other associated costs, and these really drive up the margins for processing credit, as well as being able to host your e-commerce platform in the first place anyway. So, alrighty, so let's take a look at Etsy. Etsy is by far the most complicated one. I could go and do a whole deep dive segment on Etsy. There's a lot to say about this platform. It's very appealing, and it's very user friendly. For a certain reason, they've engineered it this way. On the marketplace side, there's an array of fees that you're responsible for when you list and sell on Etsy, and we'll get more into that in the next slide. But for right now, the Etsy platform basis. So, like I said, Etsy is an interesting marketplace that was created for hobbyists and small independent creators to make and sell their wares. Today, Etsy is a premier marketplace for particular products that are closely related to the art and craft industries. Unfortunately, Etsy is forced to nickel and dime its merchants in order to pay for its complex infrastructure. So moving into the complexity of Etsy and its inefficiency, listing fees, transaction fees, attributed order fees, many fees associated with Etsy, which makes it difficult to locate hidden costs. It really makes it difficult for a lot of merchants that we speak with to hone in on exactly how to fix their issues when they're selling on Etsy. So the main paradox associated with Etsy is high volumes of traffic with little conversion in sales. And so this is a very simple problem, and once you hear it, you kind of understand, and you get why. Because we speak with many merchants, and it's 8,000, 5,000, 6,000, people a day coming to their Etsy page, and almost no sales, which should never happen. That's an extremely low conversion rate. So it typically means that something else is going on. And so once you realize that Etsy operates more like a social media platform than a marketplace, the answer becomes very obvious. People are there to window shop, not buy. And that's just the truth of Etsy. And if you look at the history of the company and how it's evolved, and its partnerships with Pinterest, these two things are very closely related. Most people are coming to Etsy to take a look at products, look at things that they think are cool, and look at things that are visually pleasing, because that has kind of been the mantra of the products that are sold on Etsy. And so you have this weird kind of behavioral paradox of people that will just come to window shop as opposed to buy. And so I think a lot of merchants are misled by that when they sign up for the platform. So, like I mentioned, there's no real way for us to quantify or give some good baseline examples of what your Etsy bill should look like. They're drastically different across, all different merchants. And so we can go over a couple of key points, though. There are some weird things that they do that people are either maybe not be aware of, or they have run into it and it's caused them major problems. Or if you're thinking about selling on Etsy, these are good things to be aware of. So the first thing is their fee avoidance policy. And Etsy has a pretty aggressive policy focused on keeping advertisement and sale of merchant products within the Etsy platform. So their fee avoidance policy discourages merchants from listing their products outside of Etsy or directing anyone from your Etsy site to purchase elsewhere. And this limits your control of your inventory and channels that you can operate in. And as we say here at Xsellarate, one of our precedents is that we want businesses to have full control so that they can be ultimately dynamic in the marketplaces that they operate in. It's the most important part of business because all new businesses are essentially in a discovery phase. And if you're not able to be dynamic, you are doing your business a disservice. You will miss out on opportunities, and it will ultimately stunt the growth of your business. The most expansive and growth focused businesses are all very dynamic and can switch their processes at a whim, and it's a huge convenience factor for small business owners. And when you get tied into a platform like this, a lot of times it makes it very difficult to be that dynamic, and it will negatively affect your business. Another strange thing that Etsy does is it's ingenious and it seems attractive until you start seeing the results of it, and then you realize you're giving a large part of your revenues away to the platform. A thing that they call attributed and offsite sales. So these are arguably the trickiest part on the Etsy platform. They are sales through the result of Etsy creating ad placements outside of the Etsy platform on behalf of the merchant. And so if you toggle this setting on, or if you agree to the Etsy ad platforms, what Etsy is going to do is they're going to charge you 12 to 15% of the total sale price to process these orders. So the issue comes down, again, another simple kind of answer to what is going on here, but I think that it's so dangerously simple that it gets missed by many merchants. And so it just comes down to the fundamentals of marketing. Most consumers do not purchase until they have multiple exposure events with a product. And so, for example, let's kind of set the stage here on what's going on with this attributed and offsite sales. Let's say that you list a product on your Etsy page and you have this setting, toggled on in your Etsy merchant platform. And somebody shows up and they check out your Etsy page, and let's say they like one of your products, or they spend a long time looking at a particular product, and then they go back to Facebook. They don't buy that time because people typically don't buy in the first exposure event. They're on Facebook, and then they get an ad for your product, and they close it, and then they come back the next day and they get another ad, and they're like, hey, you know what? I was looking at this and they keep showing me the ad for this. Let me click through. And they click through and they just decide to purchase. So now what's happened is you've gotten some multiple exposure. You can make an argument that person would never have made the purchase if they weren't receiving those ads. But the reality is that if you correctly calibrate your marketing plan and you have everything within your own control, and you're intelligent and tactful about making your ad placements, you can easily replicate what Etsy is doing on your own. And it's going to cost you less than 12 to 15% of the margin of that sale, which is a ludicrous amount. They try to shroud it in this idea that what you're paying for is you're paying for the convenience and you're paying for marketing, but that's a large part of your margin for your product or service to have a purchase take place. So this results in a high number of attributed orders naturally. Right? I was speaking to a couple of merchants, and they were like, our attributed orders are out of control. It's costing our business an insane amount of money. Our margin is almost zero on all of our products because nobody comes to our pages organically. Everybody's purchasing through this attributed sales structure, and they couldn't figure out why that was happening until we kind of explained this to them. And so this can, drastically affect your margin. And then there's other, and this is kind of a catch-all section. There's other fees and transactional situations. So there's fees for your Etsy subscription, fees for listing your product, fees for processing the transaction itself, fees for relisting the product if it doesn't sell, fees for selling in person through Square, which is strange. For some reason, Etsy, they partner with Square, and if you sell in person, they want you to record that sale from the Etsy. They have it all tied in with the inventory, and so you have to almost double pay when you sell face to face. And there's many other fees associated. So like I mentioned before, the important thing to understand here is that Etsy has built a great barrier to keep merchants within their platform, and it's all shrouded in this idea that what you're paying for is exposure, traffic, and assistance with marketing. And this is important to note because what they don't say here is increase sales. It's kind of, tricky when what they're selling is an increase in traffic, but traffic doesn't mean anything if people don't pull the trigger. People have to purchase. And so this is kind of how they baked it into their platform. On this slide, it's just kind of some auxiliary issues that a lot of people report having with these three platforms. These are kind of all related. These are all related to each of the platforms, and collectively, some more than others. And so there's problems with site downtime for lower tier plans. Like I said, they have to pay for very large infrastructure, and sites go down. And if you're on the lower tier plan side, they're going to try to restore their premium customers first. It's just kind of business operations for them. That is their priority. There's also a lot of issues with customer services. It's better on some of the platforms. It's worse on some of the other platforms. Some of them, Square, pretty hard to get a hold of people. Shopify, it's pretty hard to get a hold of people. There's also rampant cost with extra services. This is a standout for Square. Takes you a lot of extra services to effectively use the platform. They're incredibly expensive to ship and process internationally. To be fair, it's incredibly expensive and complex to ship internationally in the first place. But when you have control of the process, it's a little bit easier financially on your side. It does add a little bit of complexity for you as the merchant, but these platforms are definitely taking advantage on the international shipping process. These next 2 points are some of the bigger points. So, payment processing flags legitimate transactions. This is something that happens routinely with Square, routinely with Shopify, and this can lead to the next point, which is lengthy holds on transactions. And so it could be 15, 30 days in some cases of them holding money from your merchant account. And the reason that this happens is because of risk profiles, which is something that is very complex inside of the merchant service world, and the fact that they are aggregate merchant platforms. And I said that we would circle back to this. And what an aggregate merchant platform is that they will set up either a single account or multiple accounts, but they will host many merchants under these accounts. So you do not have access to a personal merchant account. You're actually in an aggregated merchant situation. And the problem with this is there are issues that can affect the account in its entirety, and all of the merchants that are inside of that pod, inside of that account, are going to be affected by these adverse effects. And so this is something really important to understand when we get to explaining a little bit more about Xsellarate, why it's so important to have and own that personal merchant account. This is mostly related to Square. The fragile and unreliable hardware. Those chip readers, they break all the time. They don't work. Sometimes they get shipped to you and they're broken by the time they get to you. They're just finicky. And sometimes the software is a little finicky, so I should have put fragile and unreliable hardware and software. Occasionally, you'll be punching things into maybe a terminal or the application on your phone, and it will refresh and it will erase all the data. Not necessarily a drawback; it's just pesky and annoying. Alrighty, and then too many other software integrations necessary to run the day-to-day activities. We kind of went over that, so I'll glance over that one. There's also marketing management issues and analytic issues. And the analytic issues is mostly related to Shopify. They use a Google Analytics engine, and they import a lot of the data through API into the Shopify platform. The problem is most merchants are looking for some level of advanced functionality, and after you import it into Shopify, you lose a lot of the functionality. And so most merchants just turn around and just continue to work on Google Analytics, so it becomes useless. There are also many other issues we can dive into on another presentation. If you guys like what we put together for you here today, comment below and let us know if there's a particular aspect of this presentation that you'd like us to do a little bit of a deeper dive. The reason that we're putting on this presentation is we're trying to get the communities and the networks that we serve informed about platforms like this, and just give general information to merchants so that they can be more effective in running their businesses. So at the end of the day, with these big three, what you're paying for when you sign up with Shopify, Etsy, and Square is convenience. So many of the fees associated with maintaining their platform's infrastructure are baked into percentage regulated costs. This is important to realize because, again, all of this is based on economies of scale. And so when it's baked into a percentage regulated cost, it is something that you're not going to be able to outrun. You cannot outgrow it. It will always wrangle you in. You can find a sweet spot within the infrastructure, but they will always be taking their pre-described cut of your revenue for the services that they provide. It doesn't actually allow you to reach really empowering, scalable options. So, like I said, this allows them to host huge marketing budgets, pay engineers to maintain the infrastructure, and it grows their platform. I think it grows both of your platforms, but it definitely, they're definitely looking out for numero uno, and they're taking what they need to take to ensure the growth of their platform. So their tools make it easy for individuals to quickly and cleanly create personal marketplaces for your products and services, but not scale efficiently, like I said. Xsellarate gives you access to a team and puts the ball back in your court. Our innovative approach to processing payments gives our merchants access to amenities that are maintained by our in-house teams and well within your control. And so that's an important thing to note on this point and on this slide, is that you're going to be adopting a team when you come to Xsellarate. We're going to help you achieve a level of convenience because when you're on these other platforms, it's all you trying to figure out and trying to run the day-to-day. There's simple remedial tasks. We have to draw a line in the sand. You get a team. We will make the distinction very clear when you come onto the platform, what we can do and what we cannot do. But for the most part, this is a high level of convenience that we offer that allows you to get back to, one, have control of your business, the tools and the assets that you use to run the business, and then two, keeps you focused on what you're supposed to be doing, which is actually creating your products and services and ensuring that things can run fluidly. So let's take a look at how Xsellarate differs from the other platforms. So there's 5 things, and these are our 5 kind of big categories. So as I mentioned before, we give you access to a personal merchant account. This is very important in comparison to the other platforms who are only giving you access to aggregated merchant accounts. You also get access to an in-house web services team. And how can we provide this in-house web services team for you at no cost? By applying our cash discount. So the application of the cash discount is what allows us to achieve all of these extra amenities for you and your business, and provide the level of convenience that you need to take back control of your tools and take back control of your scale and your process. And then that is the reason why we can charge 0 fees and we can give out free equipment. And this is all done with the cash discount system and then a transparent single monthly payment. And so on the personal merchant account side, a large part of the fees associated with other platforms such as Square, Shopify, and Etsy are associated with the convenience and the cost of aggregating these merchants' accounts, as I explained. Owning an independent merchant account eliminates much of the liability and costs for you and your business. And when I say liability and costs, what I mean is, paying for convenience. They set everything up for you very quickly. You don't actually own your merchant account. They essentially do accounting for you, and they'll process payments and money that is sent to you, right? And then you're a 1099 essentially. And liability, I mean, speaking what we're speaking to there is we're speaking to the associated problems with flag transactions and having your money held. That is something that should never happen unless it happens with a bank and your personal merchant account. Then we have tools to help you with that, and it's never 15 or 30 days. That's it's wild. That is ludicrous. So our in-house web services team is a team of professional web developers that we've put together, and we work with you to get your own domain and your e-commerce platform set up and established at a fraction of the cost compared to what you would pay on these other platforms. And you'll gain, like I mentioned, a large amount of convenience in not having to maintain certain aspects of your digital presence. And this will keep you doing what you're normally doing, which is making products and getting products shipped. It'll keep you on the right road and take away all these these extraneous tasks. And the magic sauce that makes it all happen is the application of the cash discount. And so this is really our bread and butter here. Cash discount is something that became federally legal in 2011. There's a piece of legislation that passed that allowed businesses to operate cash discount, which was great because for a long time what was happening was large banks and other large institutions had such a strong hold on this issue legally that you were not allowed to do it. This was not a practice that was legal in the United States up until 2011. And so our cash discount system will create a 4% premium for all of your customers that choose to use credit card payments for your products and services. And the reason I pick the hand icon here is essentially what we're doing is you will be passing the fee along to your customer. And so this makes a lot of sense in small business and in the scale that we deal with. This is not something that you can have achieved through these other processing platforms, just because of the way that their systems are set up and the infrastructure is set up and the incentive is set up. This is not something that they're interested in promoting, and this is also not something that they could even implement if they wanted to. So even if it became attractive and the right way to do things for a small business, this is not something that they can put into place. Your rates are the reason that they can't do it on these platforms is that your rates are tied to processing percentages, and they cannot be passed on to your customers. And the best example, we always get objections with this. People are always telling us before they come onto the platform, there's no way that we are going to raise prices even 4%. And I say, look, I love having water in my house. We pay taxes on water. I'm happy to pay taxes on water because that means that I can turn on the faucet and have water in my house. In the same way, your customers, if they truly like your products and services, they're happy to pay an extra 5 cents, 10 cents per transaction so that you can keep the lights on and so that your business can grow and continue to create and innovate new products and services that are going to better help these customers. This is as far as the merchant service world is concerned, this is a revolutionary concept and a revolutionary idea, and it drastically benefits small businesses. And this is why we chose to head down this route. It works very well for hybrid style businesses, people who sell face to face and people who also have an e-commerce presence. A lot of times we get weird drawback on people initially that are on the e-commerce side. They say, this doesn't really apply to me. We don't deal in cash. We sell entirely online. And what you're going to be getting access to is our in-house web services team, and you're going to be getting access to some consultative services. You get free equipment. We give you the tools necessary that if you want to go begin selling in physical locations, we can enable you to go do so. And so if you're ready to take your business to the next level, and maybe your business is destined for e-commerce, and that's fine. We'll also work with you, and you get access to our web services team and our SEO team at a fraction of the cost that you would be able to find it elsewhere. And so, this is the keystone and the hallmark of what we do here at Xsellarate, and it's an innovative concept, and it really changes the landscape for small businesses. And this is why we're able to provide zero fees. Your customers will pay the bill in incremental components, and this is a lower payment threshold than your business incurring the brunt of the cost. And it allows you and your business to accelerate much quicker in your business life cycle, and it will give you the tools to scale more effectively and at a much faster rate. This also allows us to give you free processing equipment, and so the cost of this equipment is covered by your single monthly payment. Moving on to the transparent monthly payment, it's a single monthly payment, and it makes it simple and predictable for end of month expenses. There's nothing worse, and this is what made us angry in our previous businesses. There's nothing worse than having a great month and then getting the bill at the end of the month and realizing that we are paying way more money in merchant processing. It was very aggravating. It was unpredictable. Rates would change and skyrocket all the time for no reason because of the structure of the contracts. And so with us, it's no surprises, no adjustments, and your rates are never going to change. This gives you access to free processing equipment if you need it, like we mentioned, and also allows us to provide web services and SEO. It allows us to keep the lights on as well. So, digging into the scalability bit a little bit, the Xsellarate platform helps businesses reach out of that comfort zone of rented assets, what we call rented assets, and out of the box solutions. So our platform is focused on helping small business owners take control of the tools that they use to run their business. Rented assets or out of the box solutions are most time rigid and do not offer the functionality that is required to improve process. We ensure that you control and own all of the assets and tools that you use to run the day-to-day. So once your business reaches a critical mass in sales volume, you'll begin to realize the downsides of utilizing these all-in-one platforms. There's cumbersome functionality that's going to limit your business effectiveness, and it will result in expensive overhead. It does every time. Once you reach a certain point, every business is different, but once you get to a certain scale, you will start experiencing these issues. And we offer the best in breed solutions so that your business can scale, and so do your profits. So, moving on. This is just a quick summary and a recap of how much we save businesses. Typical businesses that sell in in-store locations, we save them on average about $1,000 a month on credit processing and other associated fees and costs, expenses. E-commerce stores, we typically save about $200 a month. That being just e-commerce platforms are typically more bootstrapped and a little bit smaller in scale, and so the savings are reflected as such. Hybrid stores, we typically save about $800 a month on average, and this is people who sell in-store, face-to-face, maybe at swap meets, other associated marketplaces, and then also digital marketplaces. So everybody, thank you very much for hanging in there with our presentation. I believe we're at about 45 minutes now. It's a rather lengthy one. I hope that this was great information for everybody tuning in, and hopefully some of you sat through the whole thing. If you did and you have some more questions, or you may be interested in our services, please visit our website at Xsellarate.com. And if you go to /same day quote, we can get you some more information rather quickly about your business. Also visit our socials. Instagram is Xsellarate Merchant Services with the underscores for the space, and then facebook.com/Xsellarate. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. We're going to be putting out more content like this. If you want us to focus on any of the particular concepts that were spoken about in this presentation today, please leave us some comments. We're happy to dive a little bit more and to help you. The reason that we're putting this together, again, is that we are interested in helping the communities that we serve and helping small businesses reach their maximum potential and their maximum scale. Once again, my name is John Millikan, the VP Operations here at Xsellarate. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.